What made you want to do this? Was this
So
to try and get to the bad water, or?
So I had heard about Goggins. I read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
Goggins, dude, he's responsible for all these crazy people.
I know. So I heard his story about running 100 miles in a day, and I don't know, in some sick belief, I said, in my head, this is how I remember it. If this guy can run 100 miles without training, I could probably run 100 miles with training.
It's logical.
Yeah, right? So even though I didn't have a coach for 100 miles, I realized. But yeah, so I was like, well, maybe I'll start with 50. And so I know a lot of people, like at the time I had struggled with some mental health stuff and just being down and being a victim and all that kind of stuff that you go through growing up. And so I wanted to raise money for a charity. I had seen people raise money through charities through doing crazy endurance challenges. I'm like, wow, I can do a good cause and, do what I want, which is run a lot. And so I planned out this day. I said, hey, I'm going to run this 1 mile loop around campus during exam study days because, a lot of people at this time, they're going to be stressed about exams, but I'm just going to be like, man, like it's not all about exams. Like don't make that ruin your life. And so yeah, I put it on the calendar, and this is how I did. I said, okay, there's it's 1.08 miles, so I'm gonna run this loop every 15 minutes for 12 hours. I don't know why I said like I'm gonna do it every 15 minutes because I'd run for like 10 minutes, stop and rest for 5 minutes, run, stop and rest, run.
You probably could have done it so much faster.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's an easy way to break it up mentally, I think.
But also, yeah, I thought, how can I break it up mentally? And I never run 52 miles, so like I didn't know how it was going to affect me. So I thought if I could get my legs up, I could stretch in between, it'd be helpful. And so, yeah, that's the story of me running 52 miles.
Dang.
And it was very much thrown together. So that's something that people can take from this is like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, that's what I encourage people to. For your first marathon, don't try and, like, break a world record. Like, don't try and, hit us. Like, yeah, maybe have a goal time, but it's more about getting it done and feeling what it's like versus achieving something crazy.
Man, okay, so you did the half marathon in high school, and then how long was it before you did that 50 miler? Was that was your next race after the marathon?
Yeah, so marathon was October of 2018, and then the 50 miler was December or November of 2019, so about a year.
Okay, and then was the 100 miler the next one?
It was so this is kind of funny. So I after I did that one, I was like, okay, every semester I'm going to do a big run for charity. And so that was in December of 2019, and then May of 2020 when COVID happened, I'm like, oh, this is a great opportunity to do a run for mental health for COVID. And so I stayed down that train. I did 60 miles. The reason being I wanted to do 100, but I was doing it. I was still at my parents' house in Ohio, and my mom was like begging me. She's like, Pierce, can you please not do 100? Just like do 60, because she was like worried about me. And just do less. Like, why can't you just do 50 or something?
It's like she's talking about drugs or something.
Exactly. No, I think like a lot of my family thinks I'm psycho or something. But yeah, so that time I did 60, and then that was May, and then like 6 months later I did 100.
Dang. And did you do the 100 the same format?
No, so
because it was
similar.
It was by yourself, right?
Similar. I had friends like run with me for part of it, but similar format. I made a 1 mile loop around my area, and then I said, hey, I'm gonna do. Well, I first started out. I was like, I'm gonna try and do 5 of these an hour, and I was going on the hour, and then your body goes through different things during that. Like I walked some, and I just adjusted based on how I felt.
How old were you when you did that first 100 miler?
19.
19, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Was that like just a life-changing experience? Because I haven't ran 100 miles myself, but everybody says, they compare it to life in a day. That's what they call it.
Yeah. which is like such an accelerant because you go through so many things. Like you go through so many emotions and feelings and like wanting to stop and everything. Like you're 12 hours in or whatever, and you've gone 60 miles and you look and you still have 40 miles to go. Like that's, whew. But yeah, and then you like, it just gets, because I think what happens is you're so exhausted physically and mentally, and like by the end of the 100, my feet had like started to feel like something was going wrong, almost like stress fractures or something. And like you finally finish and everyone's like, you're hugging the few people that stayed around, because I finished at like 3 a.m, and like you're so exhausted and then you're so emotional from finishing, so it's just like you just want to cry. Like, yeah.
Did those races, or it wasn't even a race, did those adventures, you could call it, that first 100-miler, did it leave you injured? Did you go through any injuries through some of those races, or did you come out just like with some general soreness?
Yeah, I wasn't feeling great like the next couple of days. Nothing like, yeah. Yeah, just ran 100 miles yesterday. No, but like I had some lingering like foot stuff. But after a month or two, it went away.
That's great.
Yeah,
that makes it even better when you can get through it without.
Yeah, like some
injuries.
people, like I've heard of people like getting in wheelchairs after the first 100-miler, and
yeah,
I think too, like when you've been through sports growing up, your body's kind of resilient, and also being young too helps. I don't really know the science behind it, but
okay. So you did your first 100-miler when you're 19. Then where do we go from there?
So it was weird. So I did that 100-miler in 2020, and then I did I moved out to Arizona. I worked a ton and worked for an amazing like company getting into sales, and so I kind of went away from running a little bit because I was so focused on work, and I ended up doing like, have you heard of rim to rim? Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, I hiked it. Did you run it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
it's on my bucket list now.
Yeah, I did south to north to south, I think, right?
That's what we did. Yeah, the way we went was the Bright Angel from the south rim, up to the north rim, and then back.
Yeah.
That's the way you did too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was in that
to
season of like working a ton, but one of my friends that I met at 29 out of 29, which you know about, right?
Is that the Jesse Itzler?
Yeah, you hike a mountain 13 times to do the vertical equivalents of summiting Mount Everest.
You've done that too?
Yeah,
Gosh.
so I was so inspired by Jesse. I signed up for that for 2020, but then it got canceled and moved back.
How was that compared to some of these other events? It's kind of like a good intro into that.
Oh, it's
ultra.
Perfect. I think that's what it is. It's the perfect intro because it's hiking, it's not running. It's like an event, a weekend. I think it's more fun than it is challenge. Like for me it was at that time.
Right.
Because I'd run 100 miles.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really cool God story. That's where I met Steve.
Nice.
Which was awesome. But yeah, I highly recommend it for anyone thinking about it. So yeah, so I did that year. I did, what's it called? This is a good story for people to hear. So I was like, do I do rim to rim to rim? Do I not? Like I was so focused on work at the time, and the guy who I had met through 29 out of 29, I met him at this event. He's like, man, 10 years from now, are you going to remember, going to work that one day? Or are you going to remember doing rim to rim to rim? And I was like, you got a point there. And then I got the time off and then went to it. It was one of the most beautiful things that I did.
Dude, that trail is, one, it's beautiful, and two, it is humbling.
Yeah.
Just because the way that it's oriented is like it's all downhill for like 5 to 10 miles, and then it's all uphill for another like 10, 15 miles, whatever, and then you just turn around and come back. So it's all downhill, all uphill, all downhill, all uphill. So you have like no reprieve from the climbing. Was that your first experience on trails or like more mountainous type of stuff?
Yeah. And I hadn't even trained for that. Like I was not running at the time. I was lifting. So I really went into that underprepared. So I think too, that's something to take away from my story is like, yes, like I totally, like I have a coach now. I have like one of the best coaches and I'm super regimented on my training and stuff. But to get into this stuff, I recommend like having a base, but like
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people hold themselves back because they're like, oh, I need to get to a certain point before I try, which I just didn't find is the case. Like I wasn't super well prepared. Yeah, I paid for it during rim to rim to rim, but like I still got it done, and it was amazing, an amazing fun time.